Good morning, Dr. Kennelly. We are so pleased that you agreed to do this Scientific Journeys project where we are trying to identify the different paths individuals might undertake in order to get their scientific goals and become a successful scientist. So thank you again for agreeing. And would you mind starting off telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, it's my pleasure to participate in this. I was very flattered when you asked. My name is Peter Kennelly. I grew up just outside of Chicago, Illinois. I'm 56 years old. I'm one of 6 kids. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I went to grammar school and high school in Catholic schools in the Chicago area. And then I went to college at a place called the Illinois Institute of Technology. That's a commuter school, technical school, 3,000 students. And I did a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry there.
So a relatively small undergraduate institution.
Yes. Then I worked for a year there as a laboratory technician. I went to graduate school at Purdue University in the biochemistry program there. And then I did my scientific apprenticeship, what we call postdoctoral training, at the University of Washington out in Seattle.
Wow.
And then I went on the job market, and fortunately, Virginia Tech and I clicked together. And so I've been working as a faculty member in the Department of Biochemistry for 23 years now, and it's been my privilege to be head of the department for coming up on 8 years in January.
Oh, wonderful. 23 years at Virginia Tech. Wow. So you must really like it here.
Yes. I didn't, when I first came here, if you had asked me, would I still be here in 23 years? I would have said, probably not, but this is just I like the school, I like the people, I like the area, it's home.
Excellent. Well, that seems like a very scientific route and path that you took. So what first made you think about being a scientist? What really got you interested in the field of science? And what field are you exactly in?
So I'm a biochemist, so what biochemists do is answer the question how when it comes to living things. You know, you go, how do flowers know when it's time to bloom? Well, we figure out in molecular detail the mechanism by which that happens. You know, what is the reason people are diabetic? What's the cause? You know, what's the how of this disease? And so that's, I think, biochemistry is unique because we're defined by a question rather than, you know, a technique, genetics, or a system. Microbiologists explore bacteria.
Or even a subsystem of chemistry, just like interested in organic chemistry.
Yes. So our palette is the entire world of living things, and we bring chemical tools as well as molecular biological tools to approaching this. It's like anything else. If you want to really understand, play a game well, you've got to understand the rules. The rules are chemistry, physics, genetics, molecular biology.
It's very interdisciplinary. That's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Which makes sense that, you know, a question doesn't have a simple one-sided answer.
True, or a single approach to get at it. But yes, biochemistry grew out of chemistry and biology, so it was actually one of the first interdisciplinary fields, you know, before that word even, you know, was popular to emerge back in the 50s and 60s.
So was it through some point in your Catholic schooling? Was it when you went to your small undergraduate school? What point were you like, I really like science, I really like chemistry, I think this is what I want to do?
I mean, the path was not a linear one. When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a garbage man.
Okay.
And the reason was because they got to work outside. They
True.
were done by lunchtime, so they could go and play the rest of the afternoon.
You were thinking.
And they got to drive this cool truck, and you know, and they had all those levers and stuff. So, no, I did not grow up going, this is what I want to do. But I did grow up in a really interesting time, which was the space race.
That's right.
And so the first thing that fascinated me was suddenly learning all these interesting things about the stuff out in the sky. And so astronomy was something that as a kid I, read lots about, and, the space race was on TV, every launch and everything.
Still a very interesting topic today. I just saw a news report that they found a planet in our Milky Way that's composed mainly of diamonds. So there's still very interesting things out there that we're exploring.
I started in science at the end of high school, and it was a totally pragmatic decision. I had been a good student. I had the ability to do something like that. I had some general interest in science, as I said, and I wanted something where I'd get a job. And so I picked chemistry as my major in college, the place to go to, because it sounded like, knowing what things are made of and how to make stuff seemed cool, and I knew it would open up a lot of different pathways. You could go, as you mentioned before, there's physical chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, that since I hadn't made up, I wasn't really firm about what I wanted to do, this was a way of moving forward but still having a lot of options. I realized I wanted to do biochemistry because of a guy named Russell Timkovich. So I am in third year of college as a chemistry major. I'm doing okay because I'm smart and I know how to go to school. I know how to memorize stuff. But I don't think about chemistry
You
in
don't
my
have
spare
that
time.
the
Yeah.
love for it yet.
No, or the feel for it. And I didn't really understand that. Although I looked around and there were classmates who were more instinctual and enthusiastic than I was, but I was, just doing my job. I was a student since I'm 5 years old, moving ahead. Dr. Timkovich was a new faculty member in the chemistry department. He was the first biochemist that they had hired, and I got a good grade in his course. And so he dragged me into his office. Literally, he said, "You are coming to talk with me." This is December 1976. And he sat me down and said, "You have to do a senior project. You're going to do it in my lab. And you're going to give me no excuses. You're a good student, so, you can balance this. You can work hard and study hard." And I thought,
So
what
is
the
a
heck?
senior project similar to like an honors thesis?
Sort of like that, yeah. And so I thought, what the heck? And I wish I'd recorded a speech to give my own students, because he laid down all the rules. And I started things like you don't go home until the experiment's done. There's no such thing as being on the clock. And so I started working. What Dr. Timkovich worked with are called cytochromes. Cytochromes contain heme, the same thing that makes your blood red. And instead of carrying oxygen, these carry electrons. And they are part of respiration. They're part of how you burn oxygen in your body to make energy, to combust your foods. And so the really neat thing about it was I could see the proteins. So when I did things with them, like run them over a chromatography column, I could see the band of red moving down. I knew where it was. And when it picked up an electron, it was a deep red, like the Hokie maroon. And when it gave up the electron, it was an orange, just like the Hokie orange. And so you could see it.
So was it predictive
do
of
its
your
job.
later future, maybe?
Possibly, but, and so it just grabbed me. It was sort of like, this is cool. And also, when I spilled stuff on myself, everything was in water, so my clothes didn't dissolve. And so Dr. Timkovich found money for me from an NSF REU grant to work over the summer. And then when I was a fourth-year student and I was trying to figure out what to do, he needed somebody, and so he hired me as a technician. So I got to work for him about 2.5 years. So I got to really know it, and it was like, it just clicked. I mean, that's one of the things in life I think you'll find is your instincts generally are pretty good. And so, this experience, yeah, it changed my life.
So, at one point you were working and going to school, or were you that tech after you graduated?
I started working when I was 11 years old with a paper route. So I worked through high school, part-time. I worked summers in college. I paid for a lot of my college expenses. The fact that I chose a commuter school was partially economics. I lived with my parents, so I didn't have to pay, room and board. And so, yeah, I worked when I was in school. I worked for Russ, and before that, I worked as a TA. When you got to be an upperclassman, you could be a TA for the freshman labs, and so I got some money for that.
So how were you able to balance that, the working as well as going to school? That's, that's something that a lot of individuals, even nowadays, have to do.
Well, nowadays, yeah, I thought it was tough. I thought school was expensive in my day. It's gotten, unfortunately, much more expensive. Balancing it, part of it is who you're around. If other people are working hard, then it's not a burden so much to work hard. People, you feed off each other, and you help each other, and you reinforce each other, and working becomes a social activity as well. And so the fact that I was surrounded by other people who were doing that I didn't feel like I was doing something weird or exceptional. But the year that I did just work and not go to school as well was a great year. It was a chance to catch my breath and think about things and have some fun. In terms of balance, you play hard. You may not think of it looking at me now, but I played intramural sports. We had a football team, a softball team, a basketball team. That was a big source of recreation.
So it's important to make time for yourself.
Yeah. And being a commuter student also, kind of enforced that. You were there and then you went someplace else. I wasn't a resident student until I went to graduate school.
So how did you get into graduate school? So you're here, you're working for Russell. This is the first year that you're working and not going to school. Mm-hmm. So what made you decide that you want to go to graduate school and not continue working?
This was, once again, something that kind of happened fortuitously. My parents, my aunts, my uncles, they all had high school education. So going to college
So you were first
was
generation.
A huge thing.
Wow.
And so the idea of getting a PhD was, completely, absolutely alien. And my focus throughout college was, I'm going to go get a job. And then I had a job working in the lab for Russ. And Russ was, first of all, very encouraging, and so were the graduate students I work with. And they started to build some confidence inside me that maybe, I was good.
Were your parents supportive of this as well?
My parents were supportive.
But it was still an alien concept.
But it was, in the end, they were not the person you could come and really talk to about it, because they hadn't been there, they hadn't done that. So they were proud of what I was doing, but when it came to, the problems I faced, I needed to, they weren't always, the people who I could, turn to and get good advice and things from. And, also my family was going through, a tough time. My father was an alcoholic and stuff, and so it was a time when the family was under a lot of stress. Home was not a fun place, to be at that time. It was a very stressful place to be. And so that also made me much more reliant on my peers and on the people, my mentors, than I was on my immediate family.
So it's important for you, due to your struggles, to find individuals with similar interests and find a mentor, someone who you can talk to and throw ideas.
Yes, and to escape. I mean, that was, I think, one of the other things was that, when I was at school and when I was at work, I was not in this other place. So that also, it was just much more fun. It was much more relaxing, ironically, to be working and to be, in the lab. And I'm in the lab, I mean, it's an informal place. You crack jokes, you talk about the news or sports or something, it's, while you're working and stuff. So it's, it's an unusual work environment, which is one of the things that drew me to it. So I'm working, and my boss, one of the graduate students in the lab, was from Penn State and been a member of the tennis team. And it turned out that Russ liked tennis too. And, he's in his 30s there. He's still, athletic guy. And he decided that they were going to win at this small school the doubles tennis tournament. And so they started practicing. And so every day around 3 o'clock, they would come to me, the lab technician, and go, you need to watch this, and in an hour you need to go and, throw this switch or add this buffer or something like that. And after a while, I'm like, I don't want to be, I'm more than that. I can do more than that. I want more control. I want to be involved in making decisions. And I realized that while what I was doing was really cool, and that at the end of the day, if I tried my best, it was my boss's, my mentor's problem, responsibility to work out any problems. If it didn't work, and I'd done everything right and done it to my best, it was his responsibility to figure out, okay, well, what's a way around this? So there was a freedom of, it was an interesting job, and I could leave behind those things, but I realized I really wanted those bigger things, and I wanted to challenge myself. And so, I started applying to graduate schools. And the thing I will say, the smartest thing I ever did, and was I invested a little money, and working helped me pay off my loans too, which was nice, and actually visited the places that accepted me. And that turned out to be, as I say, the best decision I ever made, because I went to different places. There are tons of great places to go to graduate school, but at Purdue, it was clear I really liked the people there. I really clicked with them. I really liked the atmosphere there. And it turned out to be,
So it's always important to go visit the school, interact with the lab members that you're potentially going to work with, and of course, talk ahead of time with your potential advisor there. Absolutely.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
The single best question to ask a potential advisor is, where are your former students? What are they doing? If they say, well, they got a PhD in biochemistry and then started selling paint and working for their, father-in-law's trucking company and stuff, this isn't the mentor who's probably going to be the best person to support you if your idea is you want to do biomedical research, or you want to be a teacher, or you want to be a faculty member. So when you hear someone whose students are succeeding at the kind of things you want to do, that's a really good tell. It's a really good indicator that that person's probably someone who'd be supportive and train you well.
That's an excellent piece of advice, because I remember when I was applying to graduate school, that was something that I looked at, because that gave me an idea. Like, for instance, there was this one advisor who had, graduate students, but only half of them ever actually got their PhD. They left early. And that started to clue me in that maybe, the advisor wasn't very, with touch with them, wasn't a great advisor, wasn't, really showing them the route correctly. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. I think that's an excellent piece of advice, because I think that might be something that you're so excited in the moment, you have the potential of going to school, you're going to visit, you're talking to them, but you don't remember to take the time to actually look at this person that you're going to be working for anywhere between 4 to 6 years of your life with.
It's sort of like an arranged marriage. It has an automatic
That's a
divorce
nice way
in
of putting it.
But it's a very close relationship. So it's what you learn in retrospect is it's much more about the person than about the project. You want to work for somebody that you feel respect for, and you think you want to model yourself after to some degree. You always steal from everybody, the best parts of them. And that's something to always remember. If you work on a plant-related system as a graduate student, that does not mean you can't work on cancer later on. What you're learning in graduate school are skills. You're not pigeonholing yourself to something specific. As I say, biochemistry is about the question, not about a system. It's not a narrow field.
Right.
And so I'd encourage people, to look at the person. And there are different kinds of people. There are very few bad mentors. There are, we're human. We're the whole range. But if you're a person who needs a lot of direction, you want a lot of, you want to talk daily about things and check in and get some advice and help, you don't want a real hands-off person.
That's right.
But if you're a really intense, driven person like me, you need someone who's more hands-off, because you tend to chafe. If someone's asking you every day, what are you doing? And, kind of questioning you, for me, that's something that I would find irritating. And so it's not that they're good and bad so much as there are people who fit you better than others do.
And would you agree that a good asset that you can have for finding that information would be their current graduate students? Like, talk to them about, the advisors' personalities, work ethics, how many, group meetings, and basically the lab ethic.
Yes.
Would they be a great resource for you?
They are an excellent resource. Like tends to attract like. So a person that you would thrive under will probably draw students that you click with, and vice versa. And if a mentor says, you don't need to talk to my students, find some excuse for you not to talk to their students, that's a tell. That's a tell that there's a problem. Because a good mentor goes, I'm not perfect. And what they tell you is going to be hopefully a fairly good, but also some bad. But, I trust them and I trust you to be fair about this.
Excellent. Well, it seems like Russell was very influential to you, and you called him your mentor. So what do you think made him a good mentor? What are characteristics that make a mentor? And for you right now, you're a mentor yourself. So what are these characteristics? What are these things that really make a mentor that person that someone can really turn to and talk to?
There are a few things. First of all, you take joy in the accomplishments of others. Not everybody, can do that. The second thing is that you want to pass things forward. For I think most good mentors, there was someone in their past who was influential to them, and they go, I want to make that happen for someone else. And so not only do you want to make that happen for kind of your gratification, but you also realize that's the only real way you can pay back that person who was, so key and so giving for you. Good mentors listen. you have to, if you're going to guide a person, you have to know that person. And if you're going to guide a person, you have to give them room. So you have to let them try things and make mistakes. You can't punish people for making a mistake. What you come down on people for is not learning from mistakes and doing them again. Then, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You come down on people. You assert yourself when they don't seem to be learning from their experience. But you got to give them room to grow. It's like anything else.
Kind of like being a parent, knowing when to, let them go on their own.
Yes.
But
and then the other thing is that to admit when you don't know, to admit mistakes, it is a sign of strength to say, God, I blew it. Because that says you're secure in yourself. And, people who are insecure, who feel like they have to present themselves as being perfect, that doesn't make for a good mentor. A good mentor is someone who's comfortable with who they are.
that's right.
And the last thing is, a good mentor, and you're going to have mentors other than your own professor, understand that this is a game of matching. That if you come and talk to 2 or 3 different professors and indicate you're interested in your work, you're going to have to pick one of them. Well, that means there are 2 or 3 other people you said no to. And they're usually good people, and they're people who would be good advisors and stuff. You can still go to them because they know. They picked when they were a student, and they pick if 3 students want to work for them and they have only 1 opening. They make choices. They understand that that part of the process is necessary and is not personal. It's professional. And so they treat students' choices with respect, that they don't, shut out a student who
Or take it personally.
Yeah, or take it personally. So that's
Interesting.
so people who are secure in themselves make good mentors, and people who are excited about what they do. If they don't love what they do,
It's probably not the greatest mentor to have.
They're not going to challenge you. They're not going to create an atmosphere that's exciting and energetic. So you want someone who's still charged about it. And the reason I mentioned how old I am is because I think you can see I'm still pretty amped about this. I'm not going, God, I can't wait till I retire. It's like, this is fun. It still is fun after doing this for, years and years and years and years. And I think that's important, to find someone who creates that kind of vibe.
Excellent. I agree. I think, it's something that kind of like it feeds off, you feed on that. That's great. So there you are. You visited all these possible places to go to graduate school. You decided on Purdue. So did you went in for a master's program or a PhD program?
I went to a PhD program, and that's the norm in biochemistry.
Okay.
If you want a PhD, you go from a Bachelor of Science into a PhD program. And that's the norm in chemistry, biology, cell biology, molecular biology. Now, if you were to go into entomology, or you were to go into engineering, it's the normal route is master's then PhD. But so in this field, you can go, to use the old Monopoly thing, you can go, directly to go and collect your $200. You don't have to go to graduate school twice. It's normal for people out of a Bachelor of Science degree, even if they have limited experience in the lab, to go directly to a graduate program.
Do you think that your research experience in your undergrad was very beneficial in graduate school? Do you think that is something that, as an undergrad, you should think about if you're interested in science, working in a lab?
Experience is the best teacher. If you go to a classroom, look in the door, and everyone's sitting there taking notes, and there's a person doing a PowerPoint, writing on the board. It could be an English class, it could be a, architecture class, it could be a biochemistry class. That doesn't tell you what actually doing whatever subject it is, engaging in that discipline is like. And the most important thing about getting some undergraduate research experience or an internship is not what you learn about the field, it's what you learn about yourself. If you think you're going to be a doctor and you faint every time you see blood, that's maybe you've learned something about yourself, that maybe you should express your care for people as a physical therapist rather than as a surgeon. And it's the same thing here. The most important thing in the long run is you actually learn stuff about yourself, which is hard to do, right? We tend to either be like my aunt who always tells me, "Oh, Peter, you look so good. Have you lost some weight?" Well, if that's true over the decades, then I'd be about, this skinny, and she's wonderful and she's supportive and it's great. And you also know the person who always, it's never good enough. It's hard when you're looking at yourself not to be either too optimistic and everything's great or, gee, I can't. And that experience really helps you start figuring it out. And as I say, it's literally, the light bulb going off. You're working at this and going, you find yourself interested in it, you find yourself liking to do it, you find yourself excited about it, and you go, gee, I didn't feel that way in PChem lab, and I didn't feel that way in analytical lab. Maybe this is who I really am professionally. Excellent,
yeah. So how long did it take you to finish your PhD?
Almost 6 years. I started 3 different projects, and all of them, the first 2, all ended up with getting some results, making some project, but running up against a wall. And so, this is where freedom, my mentor, Vic Rodwell, gave me, I'm a stubborn person, and he let me go a little longer, maybe than he normally would have with a student, with my stick-to-itiveness, and, so I learned some important lessons there that have helped me in guiding graduate students, knowing when to cut your losses and move and things. So, you always learn from things. So, yeah, it took me a fair amount of time, longer than was average for the students in the program I was in. But if you get to where you want to be in life, taking a little extra time instead of settling for second best is worth it 100 times over.
And it's not unusual in science that you're working on a project and it doesn't turn out the way that you think it will, or your cells keep dying, that you're going to have to be redoing the project over and over again. So I think that that's one thing that individuals interested in science need to start getting that frame of mind, don't you think? That it's some trial and error. You might put too much buffer in or use the wrong buffer, and you're gonna have to redo it. It's gonna take some time, but when you finally get some results, it's like that amazing feeling that you actually did this and you had that data to actually have evidence for all the hard work that you've done.
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. It's like extreme sports. If you never crash, you aren't pushing the envelope. You aren't on the cutting edge. In generating new knowledge and exploring new worlds in how living organisms work, if everything you do works, then you're making really safe choices. You really aren't doing something original. So yeah, that's part of it. And it's that knowledge, the challenge that you take on is as exciting the fact that you're taking on a challenge, you're doing something hard, as it would be for someone who's a mountain climber. It's physically different, but at its core is still the same thing. You're pitting yourself against the challenge, and whether it be in the molecular world or the geographic world, in the end it boils down to the same thing, and it's got the same thrills and the same rewards and the same moments of frustration.
So you mentioned before some struggles, having to work and go to school as well as something in your personal life. Were there any other struggles or challenges in graduate school that you faced or along the way?
There were always challenges along the way. In my case, I think the biggest challenge was that, and this is kind of interesting after what we just talked, I'm a very security-orientated person. I like things to be very predictable and very safe, and science is not about predictable and safe. Science is delving into the unknown, and so there is the uncertain and the unexpected. And so I had to learn over time the confidence to take risk and the confidence to be calm and composed when you did hit those bumps in the road, when you did hit those obstacles and had to figure a way around. So I had to grow up in a way, to do that. I didn't know it then, but life isn't safe. You can't, no matter how smart you are, you can't control everything. I think if I look back at myself when I was a teenager, I thought, there was some way, if you were just smart enough and knew enough things, you could control everything and be safe. And that took a lot of time and a lot of support, to grow out of.
And that support came from your mentors and other people
and
in
the
your
people
field?
around you. But my mentor in graduate school, Vic Rodwell, was huge. And I can remember the day when I would come and talk to him about experiments. I would always say in the beginning, it might have been that I screwed up. One of the possible explanations for something, crashing and burning was, maybe I screwed up. The day I said to him, I think I did everything right. I think the problem's here, and didn't run myself down, and and had confidence in what I did, and said it to him. He said, I've been waiting for you to say that for 4 years, it obviously he had been extremely patient in helping me on that journey and letting me take that journey.
Thank you for expressing that that challenge, because I think it's important for people to understand that sometimes the challenges and struggles aren't due to an actual external event, like an advisor leaves or a death in the family. Some challenges are personal characteristics that you might have to change, reorder, or work with in order to succeed. So thank you for sharing that that challenge and that struggle. And once again, it seems like another individual, a mentor, was very important, that supportive system in order for you to continue and to succeed, because you went ahead and you finished your PhD, and then you went into a postdoc, correct?
Yes, and I postdoced at the University of Washington with someone named Ed Krebs, and Ed Krebs and Eddie Fisher, who were there, won the 1992 Nobel Prize. I had nothing to do with it, for work they did in the 50s and the 60s that discovered an important mechanism for regulating, for signal transduction, called protein phosphorylation. And that's what I'd worked on for my graduate thesis, and I wanted to do more, and I continue to work in that area. But someone like that, who's that famous, attracts a lot of really, really ambitious, bright people. And so I was in a lab with 10 other postdocs And, a couple of them are now in, National Academy members and Royal Society members, Howard Hughes investigators. I was in with them really, really, really smart people. And so it took me a while, but I figured out, and with some help and some support too, that there were more than one way to succeed as a scientist.
So you had another
career.
struggle that you had to overcome.
That I didn't have to be the person with the biggest brain if I brought other things to the table, if I brought unique insights, if I was a good craftsman, and that's something that Purdue had given me. I was an excellent craftsman. I knew my tools, the strategies, the principles of doing science very, very well. And I realized that they had things they did well, but they had things they weren't so good at. And my set was different, but my set was also good, in that I had something to contribute. And, maybe those guys who are really, really smart are going to make it to the National Academy and get Nobel Prizes, but the rest of us, the majority of us, in this community, the scientific community, also have important things to contribute. And so, I had to figure that out.
So never sell yourself short. You can do it.
Yes. Explore yourself by getting experience, reflect on those experiences, and reflect on them, as I say, in that middle ground, in a mature way, an objective way, not, everything, I'm always great or I'm always lousy. You sit down, figure out, if you understand what your talents are and what your tools are, you'll be more successful, and you'll learn ways to use what you're good at to help strengthen the areas where you're not so good.
Yeah, excellent piece of advice right there. So in graduate school and now in postdoc, you're a little bit older now. How did you balance your personal life and then your school life?
Well, in graduate school, we were very tight in a community. So we worked together, we socialized together. Sports, parties, every Tuesday night was dollar movie night at the local movie theater.
That's
and
nice.
There were a group of us who went Tuesday nights, and if I had a long experiment, I'd get up and get in the lab at 5 in the morning so I could, spend that time with my friends. We played either basketball or touch football or softball every Friday afternoon. We had a regularly scheduled, activity. When I became a postdoc in Seattle, that's a big city. Everyone's older, many more married people, family people, so much more individual. But, I said, I do not work on Sundays, and I do not bring work home. And that's something I've kept at pretty religiously. It's, if I have to stay where I'm at 10 or 12 hours to get it done, fine. But when I close the door, it stays there. And, some people, it's different. And in this
and I can understand that could be kind of hard.
So when the internet came, I don't have a computer at home. And that can be inconvenient sometimes, but it means that I physically have made sure I've drawn a line between my personal space and my professional space. And that's something I've never regretted, doing. Yeah, it'd be nice to check on the, some sports score online or, something while I'm at home, but that's a small price to pay for making sure that I don't let work take over the rest of my life.
And I like that idea. So now that we're so technology driven and mostly everybody has, the internet home, there could be a time that you just turn your laptop off and you just relax, take some time to regroup and not think of work and do something for yourself, because otherwise you might get just way too overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have to do with a certain project that's not working out the way that you want it to. So I really appreciate you saying that.
And the other thing I've learned along the way as I've gotten older, you got to be physically active. I know it may not look it, but I go to the swimming pool, 5 days a week, and and things, and it's as much mental as it is physical. If you don't get exercise, it's hard to sleep. Your brain's ready, but your body isn't. The time you spend walking or hiking or swimming or something is also a time when you actually are very creative. You think about things. You solve problems. It may not be professional problems, but you usually have time to subconsciously toss things over and look at them in different ways because there's no rush, and you come up with things. So it's also, I think, really important for you to, as far as solving problems both professionally and personally, that you carve out some time and do something physical and removed, both for the health of your body, but more importantly, for some psychological release and some creative time.
I like that. I like that a lot. I have now a two-part question. So what do you think are the characteristics that make a good graduate student and a good postdoc? What were some of your characteristics that allowed you to be successful in those areas? And if you had the chance to go back and give yourself some advice and give the viewers now advice that are thinking about going in that same path, what would your advice be?
Okay, first of all, motivation, motivation, motivation. If you aren't willing to work hard, if you aren't interested in learning more and challenging yourself, you don't have to be certain. It's hard to be certain about, what's going to happen down the line. I'm certain I want to be a biochemist. I wasn't certain I was going to be a biochemist. I wasn't certain I wanted to be a faculty member until I was 32 years old. That was when I kind of finally said, I think I might actually like doing that. But I was interested in learning and exploring both the profession and myself. And so you need to have that interest. And I found from the other side as a mentor, I can steer, I can guide, but man, when I push, when I'm the source of the motive power to have a student or a postdoc move forward and engage, that doesn't work for either of us. And so that's number one, is you have to be committed to trying. The other thing is an important thing is being willing to fail and willing to learn new things about yourself. It really will help you if you're open to that, because the more you understand about yourself, the better choices you're going to make about any and everything. The other thing is that a graduate student, a good graduate student, a good postdoc is about learning skills, about understanding that it's not about the exam at the end of the week or the month or the semester, that it's about the learning how to learning how to solve problems, not memorizing the solution to today's problem. That is how you develop into a professional. And so I think that's the other part, is an understanding of what the goal is. Because if you just say, I'm going to come to graduate school, I'm going to spend 4 years, at the end of those 4 years, they're going to give me a degree. That doesn't work very well. Maybe they'll give you a degree. What you're going to do with it and how happy you're going to be with it, I don't know.
A
degree is something you go out and seize, something you take from them. You pull and you pull and you pull until the day they say you're ready and they let go. It's not something where you kind of sit and go, okay, I've been here 4 years and, done everything you told me to do. Give me my degree. So you have to take charge and take responsibility for yourself in your development.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, sharing your struggles, and most of all, your wonderful pieces of advice. I think they're going to be quite beneficial for all these different individuals who are going to be watching this video. So thank you again for doing this Scientific Journeys video project with us. We really appreciate it.
And I'll just say one more thing to the people who are listening out there. Graduate school is, you think there are frustrations and challenges in graduate school. You're in a $1 million playground and someone else bought the toys. And we pay you a stipend on top of that. I challenge you to come up with any better bargain in there that you can do this incredible thing and
Definitely
get
a
paid
wonderful
for it
opportunity.
and
It really
get your
is.
hands on all these things. And I've probably talked too long, so I'll shut up now.
No, thank you. Really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you again.